Perfect. I'm hoping that I'm coming through loud and clear here. And if I'm not, please feel free to just shoot it in the chat and say, hey, look, volume, 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 or you're not loud enough, or speak louder, or anything like that, just in case at any point I am anywhere below like the volume that you would like to hear me at. And if at any point also I'm way too loud, let me know as well. Let me get headphones here quickly so that we make sure that I am at the correct volume. Okay, this is from me. Happy New Year. That's what this is. It's a Happy New Year, and I would like for this new year to be slightly different from the other years. I thought this year we would have a guide on how we're going to learn, how we're going to grow. Everyone keeps talking about growth and all of that. Let's just monitor, make sure that everybody can hear us nice and loud and clear. Yeah. So for myself, I'm coming through pretty clear. But if you can't hear me in the chat, just say, hey, look, I can't hear you. Hey, look, I'm struggling to hear you, or anything like that. And I will be sure to adjust and make sure that everything is coming through loud and clear. If you are on YouTube, we only have this one angle to work with. We're going to be serious. This is my reflection angle. This is what this is going to be. It's going to be my reflection angle. Anytime we have a thought, or anytime we have a realization or anything like that, you're going to see it here. Unfortunately for now, because I am still working out multi-streaming for now, and as far as YouTube, we're still going to be working with what we have in essence. Yeah, we're going to work with what we have. But as far as the rest of it on Twitch, and possibly next week was on we're also on TikTok. For that, I think we have more than one angle. Which first one is this angle that we're looking at, and then I have a couple more angles that we can play with. The reading angle, which we'll see, and then there's also a presentation angle, which I'm hoping to present to us here. But yes, for the most part, this is going to be a conversation of thought, and it's just guiding each other through whatever challenges or whatever thoughts, whatever ideas we might have or be working through. That's in essence what this just being situation is. So we're going to be reading a very important text, one that I dare say underpins our societies, especially these societies of ours that are along the lines of like more modernized, more westernized. Yeah. So we're going to be having conversations around this text called the Summa, right? The Summa Theologica. It's in essence a collection of questions, life questions, tough questions that have, in essence, received an attempt for an answer, or some of the best answers that we have to questions like happiness, to questions like how to deal with death. Like really difficult questions are dealt with in this conversation or in this book, this Summa. Summa Theologica. I pronounce it Theologica, and I saw another pronunciation that was a little weird, so I'll stick to the stuff that I know. In essence, yes. So let's, if you are joining me here on Twitch, I was quickly introducing us to the angles that we have, and we'll be able to sort of look through. Having just a little bit of delay, I think, and also some trouble with our Twitch live stream. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that and keep us going on YouTube. Hopefully, let's see if we can do that. For now, though, I do think that being just on YouTube is going to help us until next week, hopefully, where we can get to a situation where we are a little bit more versed in how to run this system, which is quite complex, but hopefully we can figure our way out. We can figure our way out here. Okay, let's see if our Twitch feed has come back. At 10 past here, I'm going to go ahead and start reading and maybe introduce what exactly this text is about, who wrote it, all of those pieces, so that we can get our intros out of the way. And hopefully by next week, we can do a quicker intro here. Quicker intro. So the book is written by Saint Thomas Aquinas. Yeah, it's Aquinas, I believe. In my best pronunciation, my best pronunciation is Thomas Aquinas, who is the writer of this great book that we're going to be sort of getting some insight from. As I mentioned, we have, if you're on Twitch, more than one angle that we're going to be playing with as a theme here. So this is going to be my reflection. As soon as I figure out multi-streaming, all my other platforms, you'll also get to enjoy this amazing angles that we have. Apart from this main angle, I have my B angle, which is more wide angle, which I think we can read from here. And then there's a third angle that we can also work with, which I think is going to be quite interesting. I'm going to use that for my notes for the most part. We are creeping on that 10 past, and then we can just deal with our first question and maybe reflect on it and see what insights we can sort of draw from that. Let me see if I can show off my third angle. I really do love cinematography. So having this many angles for me is like, yay, I've made it in life. Mama, I made it. That's sort of a moment for me. Let me just quickly get this third angle running for you so that you can see how cool it is, in essence. This only if you're on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, unfortunately, you only have this one angle that we're working with. But on Twitch, we have this really cool angle that I can also play around with. In essence, take video of like my notes, maybe my equipment or any other things that we needed to do. So that's a cool angle. It is 10 past, so I'm going to go right into the first question. And hopefully I can get our presentation or our what do we call this? Our book up so that we can be reading it while we are, or we can do that next week for now, because YouTube, I still haven't figured you out. But for now, let's get right into it. That was my 10-minute intro. My name is still Falu Ekanji, and I am on a journey to be the best version of myself. This year for me is highly focused on the ideas of think right? Well, you wouldn't start by thinking first if you don't have ideas. So you need to read first so that you can get diverse ideas in in your palette and in your mind. When you have those ideas in your head, you can think on them. So first we will read and we will think, and after we think, we will write so that we can test or rather just get a sense of how much we've grasped the things that we are playing around with in our minds when we're thinking. So first we read to take in information, then we think about that information. After we think about it, we try and translate it into the real world. Because no matter how much knowledge you acquire, no matter how much you learn, it is useless if it doesn't serve an actual real purpose in the world. That was a hard lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Okay. But for me, it's again, I'm going to reiterate this so much this year. First, we read so that we can get our hands on some ideas. When we get our hands on some ideas, we think on those ideas. After we've thought on those ideas, we need to materialize them in some way in the world. So the next step for me is always going to be writing about those ideas that we've been thinking about, that we've read about and thought about. And right after we've written about them, we can speak, right? Manifest them into the world, make them into actual things, spread those ideas to other people, help other people with those ideas. So again, we are reading. I'm going to get right into it here. We're reading from Thomas Aquinas's the Summa Theologica, right? This book has in it questions about almost everything that you can think about in life. I'm just going to go through a couple of questions that Saint Thomas Aquinas sort of treated in this Summa Theologica, so that we can get a sense of the material that we're going to be playing around with and material that we're going to be sort of trying to put our hands on and write about and think about and grow through. He has his first question in his first book, because there are three books, I believe. Yes, there are three books, but it's actually four books. But the second book has two parts. So we have the first part, and then we have this first part of the second part. The naming back then was very creative, so creative. The first book is the first part. The next book is like the first part of the second part, and then the second part of the second part, and then we have the third part. And then we even have the supplements in here. So yeah, let me treat the first question that sort of read through the first few questions that Thomas Aquinas was sort of wrestling with in this book. Okay, so we have this one here, the first book, the first part, which is the first book, the very first book. The first question in that book is the nature and extent of sacred doctrine. This would be obviously Saint Thomas. It would be in the religious context, but that is not the only questions that he deals with. The second question comes to a question that we all, if you're a human being, a thinking human being, a feeling human being, an existing human being, we all deal with this second question, the question of the existence of God, right? Every single one of us has to wrestle with this. We wake up in the morning, we see a sunrise, we see even evil in the world, and we ask ourselves, does God exist? This is a question that we're going to be dealing with here in this. And then there is the idea of the simplicity of God. He has so many questions. The beautiful thing about this book is it isn't only dealing with material that's like aloft, right? It isn't just abstract ideas that we're going to be wrestling with here. It's like old questions that are coming back into society, into the conversation in society, are going to be dealt with here again. If we do not like go back into history and find out what has been thought about something, sometimes we get caught into the thought or caught into the trap of thinking that every thought that we have is original. But a lot of the questions and the things we're struggling with today in society, great thinkers like Saint Thomas here have wrestled with the same questions. So we can sort of save ourselves time and bridge sort of like our minds and help ourselves understand what other thoughts apart from what is being presented today on certain issues exist. So we have the nature and extent of sacred doctrine, the existence of God, the simplicity of God, the perfection of God. Like these are questions that if you are in any way introspective, you're dealing with, like how can God be a good God if he allows evil? Like these sorts of questions, heavy questions here. And then the idea of goodness in general. For me, I really, really want to get into question 5. And I think that's where I want to start. This idea of goodness, something that I personally sort of wrestle with, because many times I do get sort of like, I won't call them compliments, but I do get people sort of like pointing out for me, hey, look, you're a good guy, or some people pointing out, hey, look, you're not such a good guy. So this idea of or concept of like, what do we call this? Goodness is one that I wrestle with quite some, right? Like heavily, heavily wrestle with it. So I think with this being one of the introductory sort of conversations, I think that's where I want to go ahead and sort of like start to poke at that question and see how he thought about it. So I think that's what we're going to deal with, this idea of goodness. If you want to get the text and follow along, I would love that as well. This is Summa Theologica by Theologica by Thomas Aquinas, Saint Thomas Aquinas. And it's question number 6 in the first book, right? Which is called the first part. So we have goodness in general. Question number 5. He has on this question about six articles that he wrote. Right. The first article, whether goodness differs really from being. Right? Is goodness different from being? And then the second article is like whether goodness is prior in idea to being. Does goodness start before being, right? Or whether every being is good. Like, sometimes you meet like these little kids who are little demons and like they jump around on you and they try to like pull your hair and all of that kind of stuff. And you're wondering to yourself, like, how could this little kid with all their menace be good? Okay. If you're an uncle or father or anything like that, you understand exactly what I'm saying. But yeah, even those little monsters, apparently, according to our saint here, can be good. Let me just quickly, before we continue here, make sure that some people are also joining us in these conversations. I see there were some people who were sending me some questions on whether we're live. Let me just say, hey, we're live. And hopefully share the link, especially the YouTube link. That's what I want to share the most, because Twitch, I still haven't figured out Twitch, but we're going to get there. We are going to definitely get there. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation way before our halfway mark. I do intend for these conversations to only last for about, I intend for them to last in and about an hour max, so that we can all get back to our regular, degular lives that we so love. I know I love my life. I don't know if you love your life as much as I do. Let me quickly share this with other people so that we can all enjoy these ideas of like Summa by our great thinker. Quite an influential thinker he is, or was. So I will do a quick bio on him and all of that. But for today, I wanted everyone to get a sense of exactly what his ideas were and what sort of breadth they went to. So in the articles, I think today we're going to choose one, which is why, like, doing this, I don't know how we won't spend the whole year tackling these questions. All right, tackling these questions. And you know what we can do in the next few episodes? If you are seeing this post haste, like post haste is like do it quickly. If you're seeing it post the actual live, I think if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section and say, hey, look, does Thomas Aquinas deal with this specific question that's difficult for me, that I have found difficult to deal with? Like the ideas of like, should I switch up on my day ones? Like maybe he dealt with it already and you don't know that. So yeah, If you leave that in the comment section, I will go through it and make sure that in the next episode we deal with the article that speaks about that specific thing. So let's do with whether every being is good. But I want to talk about if everyone has innate goodness. Let's see if he dealt with that question, whether goodness has the aspect of a final cause, whether the essence of goodness consists in mode, species, or order. Ooh, like, are you good because of how you're made? Are you good, born good? Like, that's a good question, I think. And I'm looking at my time here to make sure that we have enough time to like go into it. Whether goodness is rightly divided into the virtuous, the useful, and the pleasant. I think Article 6 is what I want to deal with. Is goodness something that is virtuous? Is it something that's useful, or is it something that's pleasant? If it's pleasant, is it good? If it's pleasant only, is it good sometimes if it is unpleasant? Like, this is my interpretation of the question. So we're going to go right into Article 6. Article 6, we're going to read it together here. Yeah, I know it sounds like a sermon. It isn't quite a sermon, right? But take it how you're going to take it. Okay. Article 6. Whether goodness is rightly divided into the virtuous, the useful, and the pleasant. Great. Objection number 1. So the beauty about how Thomas Aquinas put together this sort of like corpus is the fact that he anticipates the things that you will say against the idea that he's trying to sort of like share with you. He anticipates your objections, and then he has a couple of, I'm sure these were the mainstream objections to this idea, and then he sort of presents the idea. He doesn't strawman it. He Iron Man. I think it's Stillman. Iron Man. Come on, man. He Stillmans the opposition and the objections, and then after that he starts to deal with the actual ideas. Beautiful writing, if you are asking me, layman that I am. Objection number 1 to this idea is, it seems that goodness is not rightly divided into the virtuous, the useful, and the pleasant. For goodness is divided by the 10 predicaments, as the philosopher says. Ethic, he says. Oh, he's sort of quoting Ethic. And then, but the virtuous, the useful, and the pleasant can be found under one predicament. Therefore, goodness is not rightly divided by them. Right? So goodness isn't something that can be categorized into these 3 sections, whether something is virtuous, useful, or pleasant. That's the objection. That's the first objection, to the best of my understanding. The beauty about what I'm trying to sort of curate here is, for anyone who is sort of like an expert on the text or an expert on the subject matter, your understanding is going to be more than valuable to all of us who are going to be coming in here. So please, please, please do share it. If you did want to also maybe come on and have the conversation in that way, we can do that as well. I just want to make sure that the best ideas that history has to offer can come and be transmitted into sort of this new generation, or my generation, and through to other generations, because I, for one, have the sense that the schooling I don't want to pin it up against, oh, the schooling system is bad. It's not all bad. I can read, I can think, I can speak, right? But it has failed me in the sense that some of these greater ideas that are sort of like underpinning how I live my life, I haven't had the opportunity to sort of interact with in a real way. But these are ideas that are shaping how I see the world either way. Let's go into the second objection. I will try my best not to just go off tangents here. Objection number 2. Further, every division is made by its opposite. I'm not so sure what is meant by that, but these 3 do not seem to be opposites. Right? Every division is made by its opposite. Now that's an interesting concept on its own, but because we're dealing with the main theme of goodness, I might pin that and maybe come back to it. I need to be really disciplined here, because I can have the tendency to go off tangents, because questions like that, it might seem simple, but when I think about it, like, it might expand bigger. So I'm going to try to be disciplined and just pin things and come back to them later. For I'm reading again. For the virtuous is pleasing, and no wickedness is useful. No wickedness is useful, I am not certain about. Because so many people instrumentalize their wickedness in order to, this is the culture we live in today, right? Like instrumentalizing your wickedness to get ahead in life is exactly the culture that we're living in. So I don't know about wickedness being useful. Maybe useful needs to be defined for us here as well. Whereas, oh, these are objections, these are not his thoughts. Okay, cool. We haven't even gotten into his thoughts, and I'm like already doing this thing. I had a notebook here that I was supposed to be writing in, but for today, we're just going to go through this as an introductory sort of conversation and see what we can get out of it. And then as episodes evolve, we can do take notes and all of that sort of a thing. But for now, let's just dip our feet into the river and see what we can find in there. Okay. We were saying that some wickedness is useful, I think. I don't know what you think. Leave it in the comments. Do you think like there's some wickedness that's useful? Or do you think like all wickedness is just useless, as is being said here in this objection? Whereas this ought to be the case if the division were made by opposites, that wickedness would be useful, I believe, if goodness was divided by opposites, is what I believe is meant by that sentence. For then the virtuous and the useful would be opposed. Yeah, in essence, virtuous and the useful would be opposed to each other. This is an objection. It's not yet what he thinks. This is probably what the mainstream thought would have been. And then it says, and the Tali speaks of this. He makes a citation. Whenever these citations happen, I'm going to note them and then find where he was citing, and then we can also explore that at some time, wherever time allows. Therefore, this division is incorrect. This is the objection to our main sort of like, what do we call this? Postulation at the top there. Objection number 3. And again, if you are not a layman like me and you're an expert on this text, and you find that my approach is a little too layman, please assist me, educate me. Let's do it back in the way that your Socrates and all the other great thinkers would have done it before the sophists came in and started to charge money for it. That was a very bad joke, but I laughed at it. So one person laughing is enough. Objection number 3, before we get into the answer, which is quite meaty. It's not too meaty, actually. He has replies after that. Objection number 3, further, where one thing is on account of another, there's only one thing, but the useful is not goodness. But the useful is not goodness. So goodness itself is not usefulness. I'm hearing, except so far as it is pleasing and virtuous. So useful things are only good when they are pleasing and virtuous. So if something is useful but is not pleasing and virtuous, then it isn't good, is what I'm sort of getting. If you're getting something else, let me know. Therefore, the useful ought not to be divided against the pleasant and the virtuous. These are objections. Okay, so now we've had the objections, probably like the mainstream thought at the time, like in as far as our main question is like whether goodness is rightly divided into the virtuous, the useful, and the pleasant. Like, can we take this idea of goodness and say everything that is virtuous, everything that is useful, everything that is pleasant is good? I think this is sort of like the question that we're dealing with. And we've had some objections. They said that if this was true, that these things could be, this was the second objection, if these things could be divided into those categories, then they would be opposites, right? And because they're not opposites, he says, the objection says that because they're not opposites, then these things cannot be divided into those 3. I don't know if the intention here is to mean that they are the same thing and they're not separate. Goodness isn't virtue, usefulness, and whether something is pleasant. And then the first objection was for goodness is divided by 10 predicaments. I think goodness, he was sort of citing ethics, is underpinned by ethics. That was the first objection. And then the third of the objections, I'm summarizing here, is that these three things should not be divided into these three categories because something being useful is not goodness, but useful is not goodness, except in a case where it is pleasing and virtuous. Only when something useful becomes pleasing and virtuous is it good, in essence. So this is now the answer. This is his thoughts on his being, the him here being Thomas Aquinas, on this question. On the contrary, he says Ambrose, he's citing again, makes use of this division of goodness, right? I answer that. His answer is that this division properly concerns human goodness. But if we consider the nature of goodness from a higher and more universal point of view, we shall find that this division properly concerns goodness as such. For everything is good so far as it is desirable and is a term of the movement of the appetite. And then the term of whose movement can be seen from a consideration of the movement of the nature of a natural body. That was a lot, right? I'm going to read through it, and then if we need to unpack, we unpack. But that day was a mouthful. I was struggling to follow along. For everything is good so far as it is desirable. Everything is good so far as if I want it, then it is good. Murky, murky, murky. And is a term of the movement of the appetite. This is the sort of like thing that is confusing me, and I'm going to read on it and see if we can sort of answer what that could have meant next week. The term of the movement of the body. Now, the movement of a natural body is terminated by the end, absolutely, and relatively by the means through which it comes to the end. Where the movement ceases, so a thing is called a term of movement. So far as it terminates any part of that movement, now the ultimate term of movement can be taken in two ways, either as a thing itself towards which it tends, e.g., place or form, or a state of rest in that thing. Thus, in the movement of the appetite, the thing desired that terminates the movement of the appetite relatively as a means by which something tends towards another is called the useful. He's in essence defining what usefulness is. And it was a mouthful. I'm going to reread this and then see if we can get some meaning out of that. He defined usefulness as like movement of appetite, in essence, and desire. So too abstract for my mind to grasp right now. So I'm going to make a note of it and then wrestle with it a bit later. But that sought after, no, is called the useful. But that sought after as the last thing absolutely terminating the movement of the appetite, as a thing towards which for its own sake the appetite tends. Whoa. Is called the virtuous. So now he's defining virtue as, let me go back because that was a mouthful. Okay, he's defined that, but that sought after as the last thing absolutely terminating the movement of the appetite is a thing towards which for its own sake the appetite tends is called the virtuous. For the virtuous is that which is desired for its own sake. Okay, so when you desire something for the sake of that thing alone, it's called virtuous. So if I want to be rich, which I do, I really do, for the sake of being rich only, then my desire or being rich is virtuous. Is that what we're saying here, Thomas? Are you alive? Can I talk to you? Can I ask? I think what we can do even is maybe um, take his text, put it into a GPT, and then ask it questions. When we have these questions, sort of ask it. I don't know how we can do that in such a way where we can get like live answers, like voice text. Maybe I'll just do it on my phone. I'll do that. I'll build a council of Thomas Aquinas and maybe some other people, and then we can ask. You put your questions in the comment section here, and then we can ask it. He's basically defining usefulness, virtue, and then I think he's also going to go ahead and define the other, which was what this idea of pleasantness is. I think even next week we might deal with this same text because it's been quite a chunk. For me, at least, it's been quite a chunk to lay hold on to or grasp. Oh man, I wish Twitch is also doing the most there. Let me get my B cam on and say hi on Twitch on this side because like I've been on this cam too long. Hi everybody, this is how I look in full. I have my notebook here. I have all my tech here. Okay, cool. People on YouTube are like, what the heck is this guy talking about? I'm only seeing one angle. Okay, cool. Don't worry about like next week or the week after that, or whenever the next episode is, we're gonna have that sorted out. Multi-streaming is difficult. Let's continue with the difficult questions that we're dealing with. There's enough difficulty in the world. So we have so he's defined virtue for us. It's like when we have a desire for something only for the sake of let me read it because like it's such a mouthful. For the virtuous is that which is desired for its own sake. Something is virtuous when we want it for the sake of itself. Like if I want to be good for the sake of being good, then the being good is virtuous, right? So the idea of virtue is like wanting something for its own sake. The idea of usefulness, we got to come back to next week because I did not understand it at all. So we still need to wrestle with that. Yeah, so when we want something for its own sake, he's defining it as virtuous for its own sake. But that which terminates the movement of the appetite in the form of rest is the thing desired. Ooh, this is good. This is really good. But that which terminates, that which ends the movement of the appetite in the form of rest. Like when I wanted something so much, and then this something, I get something that then stops that desire or stops the movement or stops me having the appetite for that thing in the form of rest. I think this is what he's going to define for us as pleasant. Yep, that's exactly what he says. He says, but that which terminates the movement of the appetite in the form of rest, in the thing desired, is called pleasant. In essence, so he's trying to define usefulness, virtue, and what was the other one? Pleasantness. Is it pleasantness? I think pleasantness. He's trying to define this in a way that is a priori, in a way that you come to it without any previous ideas. This is the problem. It's not necessarily a problem. It's just how we're built as human beings. In anything that we believe, in anything that we understand, in anything that we think, there are sort of assumptions that we come into those thoughts with a priori, like before anything. The assumptions that we make, which is what he is trying to do here. Come and define these words without any assumptions. Have you ever sat down and tried to define what exactly virtue is? When you say, hey, that's a very good guy, that's a very virtuous guy, what do you actually mean? That's what he's trying to do for us here. He's so far defined like something virtuous as. So let's start with the first one, which he tried to define. He did define usefulness, but my brain tried to understand it but didn't understand it. And then he just defined virtue for us as something that is desired for its own sake. And then he is defining pleasantness as something that we receive that gives us rest from the appetite of that thing. In essence, this is what he's defined as pleasant. And then he starts to, so now he's made his argument, he's made his idea, he's shared his idea with us. And then he goes straight into his replying to the objections. This is the beauty of like Thomas. Can I call him by his name like that? Like, Thomas, hey, Tom. But this is the beauty of his work for me. And these are sort of like my very first in-depth interactions with him. I've only had interactions with his work in as far as I had questions that I wanted answered, and I went to the work. Now I'm going through it like start to finish and trying to sort of digest the whole entirety of the thing. So that's what this is for me here. We are doing our best to, and I love what we're doing here because if you looked at the essay that I sort of published for this week, it had to deal with this idea. I sort of was struggling with this idea of like, before I go into his reply to the objections, and then we can close out here. I was dealing with this idea of like, I've always been in this space where when I'm in a transition, I try to fill that transition with goodness. This idea of what I believe is good, what I believe is beneficial in that moment to other people. And in those transitions, it ends up being the wrong time. And now, in the moment, I don't feel that it's the wrong time. I don't feel that this is the wrong space. I don't feel that this is the wrong beneficiaries of this goodness, this gift. In my mind, I've been gifted with the gift. I have to share it. I have to use it. I don't want to be called wicked servant. For those of us who are Christian and who espouse those beliefs, I don't want the ending of my life to be, hey, wicked servant, because I didn't optimize my gifts and give them and serve them to as many people as you can, which is what the internet says. Serve as many people as you can with your gifts. You owe them your gift. And then I find myself in spaces where, even in seasons where I am being prompted to be at a state of rest or in a state of transition, in a state of emptiness, to feel that emptiness, and for that emptiness to bring awareness for me, awareness of self, awareness of others, awareness of what exactly these gifts are, awareness of how I've used it, like awareness, like that space. I tend even to get an awareness of just how gifted I am, and to enjoy and sort of be grateful for that. The weight of these gifts crush me in those spaces. And so, in order to débarrasse, to get some French in here, in order to sort of offload the pressure or the weight of this gifting, or just how gifted, wow, this is blessing my soul, to use some Christian terms. This is helping me so much. It was such an epiphany for me that I lost my train of thought, but I'll get it just now. In those seasons where I'm being asked to stop or be still and know that I am God, like for us who read the Bible, to be still and understand just how much I've been blessed, just how much I've been gifted, to feel it. I feel the weight of this gifting and want to give it away. I want to give away my gift. I want to give away my gift, in thinking that the best use in that time is to be giving it, to be using it, whilst in essence, that's not the use of that gift in that season. In that season, the best use of that gift might just be to understand that I am gifted, right? And this isn't in a boastful way. It's like to understand that I am gifted, right? And because I live with this gift or these gifts 24/7. So they kind of lose their it's not so special to me. It doesn't feel so special to me because I live every day with them. I am under the impression that the ways that I am gifted, others are gifted. So I'm brought into these seasons to understand that other people are not gifted in the way that you're gifted, and they are not gifted. You are not gifted in the way that other people are gifted as well. But I find myself being crushed by that feeling and that realization that I am gifted. And I try to give it away. Almost like I don't give it away, I throw it away. even in season and spaces, in rooms that this gift is not required, I expend it to the point where I am flat. And when it comes the season to give to the people who require it, who appreciate it, who are ready for it, who need it right now, I'm too tired, I'm too spent to be able to give that. So this idea of like goodness for the sake of goodness, as a virtue because of its sake, its own sake, is really resonating with me in essence. But let's go to his replies here and close out. I went off a tangent there because it was so helpful for me. And I hope that someone was finding some benefit in it as well. Objection number one, his reply to objection number one, goodness, so far as it is identical with being, is divided into 10 predicaments. But this division belongs to it according to its proper formality. So, this idea of 10 predicaments might be why I'm failing to understand objection number one and his definition of like usefulness, right? So, maybe I need to read this, what he cited when he was speaking about this 10 predicaments. If anyone knows exactly what it is it like his treatment of ethics? Is it someone else's treatment of ethics? Like, what is he pointing to here? If you are aware, please point me in that direction so that I can read up on it. And this is what this is. It's us just being. I'm just being. I'm learning. I'm growing. I want to understand these texts. So if you understand them, help me understand them as well by teaching me or pointing me in the direction of something that can teach me. If you can't hear me, please put it in the chat and say to me, hey, look, I can't understand this. Okay, objection number two, so that we can close on exactly an hour. I've been speaking for more than 45 minutes. Well, no, less than that, because we did have that little intro section in the beginning for us. Objection number two, this division is not by opposites. This was the one that says if these things were divided, they would be, if goodness was divided into virtue, usefulness, and pleasantness. Is it pleasantness? If it was divided into that, then these things would be opposites. That was the objection. He's replying to that objection. This division is not by opposite things, but by opposite aspects. What a nuance. What does he mean? Does anyone know what the difference would be by not by opposite things and aspects? How is he meaning that distinction? I don't want to make any assumptions there. Now, those things are called, is it those things that are called? No. Now, those things are called pleasing, which have no other formality under which they are desirable except the pleasant. Being sometimes hurtful and contrary to virtue. Don't quite grasp that. Should we continue or should we try and bite it? I have 10 minutes, so we'll continue. So I'll treat this, and then we can do a quick recap for 10 minutes next week, and then we will come back into it. So any of these sort of like questions that arose here, I'll deal with them, and I'll try to build that AI so that we can ask it immediately next week and say, hey, look, he's saying this. Does he mean this? And then we can sort of not have to recap next week or whenever the next episode is. Whereas the useful applies to such as having nothing desirable in themselves. Whereas the useful applies to such as having nothing desirable in themselves. So useful things don't always have desirability in themselves. Is that what we're understanding? We'll deal with it next week. But I'll get a nice GPT, a nice large language model for us to deal with. Whereas the useful applies to such as having nothing desirable in themselves, but are desired only as helpful to something further. Or something is only useful. So something useful isn't always desired for its own sake. Okay, now I understand it. So something is useful not because it in itself we want it for its own sake. Something is useful because it is trying to achieve an end, in essence. Yes. Like my phone is useful because I need to call someone else. It isn't useful because it's the phone, right? In essence, I think it's wow. I love it, meaty. So my gifts then are useful only in as far as they achieve. My gifts are only useful in as far as they achieve a certain goal. I think, is that what he's saying? Only as helpful to something further. So my gifts are only useful when they are helpful to something further. Like they help push something further. Like example, my gift of speaking is only useful when it gives you information that you can use to do something, right? Not the best of examples, but I think we're wrapping our heads around that. That's a good one. That's a good one because I've been in a space of like trying to use my gifts virtuously, trying to use my gift for the sake of the gift. But the gift is for usefulness. It isn't for virtue. That's beautiful because I've always been in a space of trying to do things for the sake of themselves. That's more the field of like virtue. But not everything needs to be virtuous, right? I try to help people to be virtuous, but you need to be helpful to be useful. If you get the distinction there. Okay. Uh, as helpful to something further as the taking of bitter medicine. You see, exactly. You take bitter medicine not because it is pleasant, but because it is virtuous, or because it is good in its own for its own sake, but because it achieves a certain goal. And then while the virtuous is predicted, yes, is predicted of such as are desirable in themselves. Yeah, that idea that we sort of discussed before, where something is virtuous only when it is good for the sake of itself. And then reply to objection number 3 to close us out here for this question, at least. Question number 6. Or is there a prologue here? Whoa. I thought we were done, but we are. I think we'll treat this and then we can sort of go into further questions. Leave your questions inside the comment section. Let's grow. Let's grow, man. I ask questions very rapidly. I sort of digest information very rapidly. Fail, 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 fail until I get it right. That's how my thinking process is. It's all trial and error for me. So put your trials in the chat. Let's trial and error really quickly so that we can get more intelligent by the time we're done with this book or by the time the year is over. I thought I was going to be able to deal with this material in the next 3 months. What an overestimation. What an overestimation. That is not going to be happening in any way. I am going to have to deal with this probably for the next 3 years, but we'll try not to make it that way. Okay, objection number 3, so that we can close it out. Goodness is not divided into these 3 as something univocal. Univocal is a new word. Let's take it. Let's use it. I thought it was unequivocal, but it's univocal. Unison, I think. Speaking or similar, speaking in one accord, man. Come on. Goodness is not divided into these 3 as something univocal to be predicted equally of them all. Okay, so it's not a blanket. It's not a blanket statement. It's not divided into these 3 things as a blanket statement. Like as far as virtue, as far as pleasantness, and as far as usefulness, goodness cannot be applied the same way, is what I'm hearing. But as something analogical, I need to get a proper definition of analogical, because I think the way that he's using it and the way that we use analogical in modern or pop culture is completely different. So I'll get an actual, we can just quickly do that. Let's quickly get what analogical means. Let's see. I have 5 minutes. I am going to wrap up in time. Don't worry, I'm not a preacher. Okay, I'm gonna get it done. Analogical meaning. No. Let's go analogical. I just want to understand what like this whole AI thing at the beginning is like crazy. Analogical definition and meaning of relating to or based on analogy. That wasn't very helpful. Number 2, expressing or implying analogy. Analogical. That's not helpful either. How do we break this idea of analogical down? Comparison between things that have similar features. There we go. They have similar features. So if we're analogous, my pronunciation is crap today, but understand what I'm trying to say. If two things are analogous, they have the same features, okay, in essence, or analogical. They analogous, that's the pronunciation, analogous. Forgive me, it is 8 p.m. where I am, and my mind is on the back burner, so even my pronunciation is starting to fall apart because speaking is not my primary modality. Thinking is. So I need to start speaking so that when I'm thinking crap, you all can tell me that my thoughts are crap and I can correct them. So I'm going to speak a bit more. This is the idea that I was talking about earlier. I've been gifted with, well, I'm under the impression that I've been gifted with the ability to speak. But as fate or as design would have it, so cruelly, I, in my primary modality, don't like to speak or find speaking exhausting, except in the correct atmospheres. We are down to 3 minutes here, so I'm going to wrap it up with the last thought here. Goodness is not divided into these three as something univocal to be predicted equally of all of them, but as something analogical to be predicted of them according to priority or posteriority. And posteriority, we're going to figure out what posteriority means. Okay, which one comes first and which one comes after? But I don't understand how it links up, which is my fault. Hence, it is predicted chiefly of the virtuous, then of the pleasant, and lastly, the useful. So, goodness, I don't know how he's using predicted, but I'm understanding that he means goodness applies to virtue first, and then what is pleasing, and then what is useful. He's hierarchically sort of placing them. Okay. And then now question 6, we have a prologue here. Oh, okay. Perfect. That was question 5 that we dealt with, right? I believe it was question 5 that we just dealt with. And thank you so much. No, that was article 6 on question 5. All right, so I think we'll stick to question 5 next week as well, and then deal with the other articles and other questions. But for me, if you've joined me through and through here, I am much grateful to you for your time. I hope you could hear me this whole time because I was facing this way, and I think I might not have been coming through clearly. But if you've joined me here through and through, I appreciate you so much, sending you so much love and appreciation. My clock, the live says that I have 2 minutes left, but I know I don't want to be a preacher. I appreciate you. This has been an episode of, okay, just being funny. And this is what this is. It's just being, and it's okay. Just being is hopefully going to turn into a community of people who help each other learn. So thank you if you've been here. If you have any thoughts, any corrections, anything at all that you might have, I appreciate you. Share them in the comment section, and yeah, we will sort of deal with it next week. If you have any pressing questions that are happening in society, if I find them online as well, I will also bring them up. But I am certain we can find it in this corpus, and we'll deal with it. All right, this has been Falu Ekanji with you here on Just Being. What a beautiful episode. I enjoyed it so much, having conversations with myself. So next week, please join me in the comment section, and let's have some more beautiful, enlightening, and hopefully life-altering conversations. So yeah, that's been me, and I appreciate you again so much. Peace. Let me just show my other angle one last time on Twitch. Hey, Twitch people, thank you so much. I had like one more angle that I wanted to show. Let's see if we can get it in here. CCAM. Oh, I did show my CCAM. We have quite a beautiful setup here. Let me show you what I'm seeing so that you can. This is just me goofing around now. We've closed the show. But yeah, this is what I'm seeing. This is everything. We are having such a beautiful setup here. I'm loving it. I'm loving you because you're such an amazing person. You watched my live stream and you want to grow. So yeah, it's been beautiful. It's been amazing. It's been lovely. Hopefully, I will catch you in the next one and we can continue to wrestle with these questions. Like, goodness is a big question. So I'm glad that we got to deal with it together. I'm going to stop being a preacher. I know we're 1 minute over time, so I'm going to wrap it up right here. You continue being Bear and continue just being. Okay? See you in the next one.